Welcome to Navigating the Customer Experience. Want to improve your organization's customer service? Looking for insider tips to knock your customer socks off? Then you're in the right place. Here's your host, Yanique Grant.
Welcome to Navigating the Customer Experience. On today's episode, our guest is Rusty Rueff. And Rusty is a prominent business executive and advisor with extensive experience in technology and the arts. He served as CEO at Snowcap Incorporation until its sale in 2008. And he was an executive vice president at Electronic Arts, overseeing global HR and corporate communications. Prior to that, he spent over a decade at PepsiCo, culminating as vice president of international HR. And he also worked at Pratt & Whitney. Rusty has held significant roles in public service, including as the coordinating national co-chair of technology for President Obama's campaign, and he's a member of the President's Advisory Committee for the Arts at the Kennedy Center. He is a co-founder of Alioth Talent and has been involved with startups like Glassdoor and HireVue. Academically, he holds an honorary doctorate from Hanover College, an MS in counseling, and a BA in radio and TV from Purdue University, where he's also a benefactor of the Patty and Rusty Rueff School of Design, Art, and Performance. Rusty is a published author and a co-host of the Faith-Driven Entrepreneur podcast, residing in California and Rhode Island with his wife and their French bulldog. So without further delay, sit back and let's jump into this interview with Rusty. Welcome, Rusty.
Well, thank you for having me. Thank you. I didn't bring Theo, my French bulldog, with me, so I'm sorry.
That's his name, Theo?
Yeah, it's Theo. Yeah, Theo.
That's all right. So, Rusty, could you share with us just a little bit about your journey, just a little bit about how you got from where you were to where you are today?
Yeah, I'll try to be very, very concise about it because my career in my life has been very much like sailing. I don't know if have you ever been sailing? Do you know?
Is that the one with like a piece of material hanging? I'm sure that's not the name of it.
Yeah, yes, yeah.
And it doesn't have a motor.
It does not have a motor.
No, I've never been on that one. That one scares me.
Yeah, it travels by, moves you from place to place as you tack with the wind, right? You follow the wind, and sailboats don't go straight. They actually go in diagonals to get out to where you want to get to. That's why you move back and forth. And my career has been very much that. I started off in entertainment, radio and television. My father was a radio and television personality. That's all I wanted to be. I started doing that, realized that's not really what I wanted to do. And I went into business, and I spent a fair amount of time in the human capital space, 2 years at Pratt & Whitney, 10 years at PepsiCo, particularly doing talent management. And then I got a chance to come back to entertainment and use some of that human capital experience and join Electronic Arts, EA, back in 1998. And we were growing so fast. We were a young company. Anything that wasn't sort of nailed down, you got an opportunity to work on. And so I got this broad range of experiences that allowed me to tap into the past, but also learn a lot of things that I hadn't done before, like you mentioned, corporate communications, government affairs, all of our internal facilities and global real estate operations. And so, and I also had this background in music. So I was able to have an influence on the company and how we use music in video games. And that was exciting to me. And I got to meet a number of people in the music industry, and I got recruited out of EA to actually go and be a CEO of a company called Snowcap, which was founded by Sean Fanning of Napster fame or infamy, depending upon how old you are. Mm-hmm. And I was able to do that for 3 years, go through the whole venture cycle, raise a bunch of money, ended up doing a deal with the most important music website at that time, which was called MySpace, which nobody really remembers anymore.
Oh gosh, yeah, that was before Facebook.
It was before Facebook. That's correct. And then that opened up opportunities for me to join the Grammys, the Grammy Foundation, become the chairman of the Grammy Foundation board. And in 2008, we sold the company right before the world fell apart. And then that gave me a new tack to take as the wind blew. It started doing a lot more things in the arts and philanthropy, and as well as also I was invited by President Obama to be the coordinating national co-chair for technology for Obama for his 2012 reelect. Out of that, was appointed to the Kennedy Center, and along the way, I've written a couple of books. Wrote a book on talent in 2006 called Talent Force, and then just this last year, published another book called The Faith Code, which is about how to bring your not only mind and body, but also your spirit to the workplace.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so, I've gotten to do a lot of interesting things, and I advise, I invest in companies. I sit on a number of different venture-backed boards, and was on the founding board of Glassdoor, joined them back before they even had a PowerPoint back in the day. And yeah, so I've been very blessed and fortunate to be able to do lots of different things.
All right, fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing. Now, you mentioned that you recently published a book called The Faith Code. Could you tell our listeners a little bit about that book and just kind of what value you were looking to bring forward when you published, when you wrote and published this book?
Yeah. So what had happened is right after the iPhone came out, and they came with the App Store. And if you remember back then, there was a very prolific advertising campaign by Apple, because said there's an app for that,
Yeah.
right? And because there was an app for everything. And I was back at my alma mater at Purdue, and I was speaking to the business school there, and I gave this presentation and said, "Are you building your life as a platform or an app?" And that metaphor being the platform being those things in life that are consistent, dependable. You can count on it always being there. You can build other things on top of that, like a platform would do. Like when we open up our iOS or Android, our phones, our devices, our computers, they boot up the same way every day. Lots of things can go on. They need to be updated, but they're not updated every day. But they and we depend upon them. There are things in our life that are platform elements, like our relationships, deep relationships, our values, our principles, those passions, things that we really love and care about.
Yeah.
And things like taking care of our mind, taking care of our body, and taking care of our spirit. And so I put that out, and I said, or are we building our life as an app? Building our and a life has lots of different apps. They have some really important ones, like our jobs, like where we go to school, like where we live, the people that we tangentially associate with. And then we have a bunch of likes in our life, like our sports teams and our politics and all those are all good. There's no problem with those. But those are also things that come and go. And those are things that easily crash. And those are things that might be popular one day, gone the next, important to us one day, not important to us the next. And that if we build our life on those things and they crash or they get taken away from us, we can find ourselves lost.
True.
And so I gave this speech, and for a decade plus, whenever I would go back to Purdue, I would run into anybody, and still to this day, people will say, I still think about that. I think about building my life as a platform or an app. Well, I extended that out along with the pastor of my church, who I have a very great relationship with. We said, what if we just take one element of that platform and build out that metaphor, and we look at the element of faith, and then decide, well, what kind of source code are we using for that? What kind of framework are we building around that? What kind of algorithms are we running in our life so that that platform grows and stays strong and becomes something that we can count on for the rest of our life? Because I've always said that, the human experience is that we will decline physically, we will decline mentally. No way around it. There's no way around it. But the only thing that we can actually not decline in, but grow beyond ourselves, even to the moment of our death, is our spirituality. Like our faith can get stronger each
Yeah.
day while these other things decline or deteriorate. And so what we do in the book is we go deep into that platform side, and then we say, okay, but there are apps of life out there. How do you apply that platform into those apps? But you let the platform, your faith code, drive your decisions in those other areas, like your career and like relationships, and how you want to spend your time. And that's the premise of the book. It's been a lot of fun. What is great is that we've found that people of all faiths and people who wouldn't say that that faith is important to them are getting something out of the book. They're getting something out of the book because they're saying, look, I recognize, especially as we age, I recognize this phenomena that my mind, body, and spirit, I am better when they're an isosceles triangle.
Yeah.
Like when I am balancing them out. But when I ignore one, or if I ignore this idea of my spirit, in those moments when I have nothing to draw upon, or when I'm in a crisis, or I don't have friends around me, or where do I go?
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, without the spirit, your mind can take you places that you don't want it to go, and your body can be affected by that, right?
Yeah.
High times of stress, or lack of self-confidence. All of those things can start to play, and that's where spirit can make a difference.
Mm-hmm. All right. That sounds like a great book.
Well,
I'm gonna have to get a copy.
that would be awesome.
All right. So in terms of helping, so you said the book helps people, right? Mind, body, and soul, and they all are connected. And in customer experience, I talk about it all the time with my participants. I believe it's so important that you take care of yourself. Like get enough sleep, eat properly, and
Yes.
exercise. Like I think those three things are like really important. And people will say to me, so Yanique, if I walk up and down in my office, is that considered exercise? But unfortunately, for most of the articles and subject matter experts in the nutrition and exercise area, your heart rate needs to get pumping to a particular sets of beats per minute for at least 15 to 20 minutes per day for it to be
That's right.
classified as exercise, for you to be really get moving. And so how do you get people to that place? I know you mentioned that the book is applicable to people with any, whatever their faith might be, whatever area they're
Yes.
in. But how do you get people to recognize that in order for them to really perform, um, what's the word I'm looking for now? At the best in every aspect of their life, they have to pour into all those areas that you had mentioned. And the spirit is very important because it's kind of what drives us, right?
That's right.
It's inside. You can't see it, but you can feel it. And you can know when you're off, like when you're having an off day. It could be maybe you ate something that's not sitting with you so well, so it makes you feel lethargic, or maybe you normally get 6 to 7 hours of sleep per night, you only got 4, so you're feeling extra exhausted. Just how do you get them to that point to recognize that they have to balance it out in order to be able to be the best at what they're doing?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I have this belief that people change in only one of two ways. So they change when they are invited to change.
Mm-hmm.
And what you're doing right now is you're inviting people on your podcast and others to change, right? To improve yourself. In order to improve, you got to change something,
Sure.
right? You got to work a little harder at something. You got to be a little more efficient. You got to be a little more productive. You got to get rid of distractions. You've got to change something.
Mm-hmm.
And we're invited to change every day. But the human condition is one that is resistant to change. We habituate very easily. And all I have to do is, ask somebody the question. We could do it ourselves to say, okay, how did we boot up this morning? And what I mean by that is, what was the routine that you went through to get ready? When you got out of bed to the moment that you're sitting here, the order that you brushed your teeth, you washed your face, you took a shower, you flossed your teeth, you did whatever whatever you do, it was likely the same today as it was yesterday. And when somebody decides that they're going to, if I drive to work every day or I drive to school every day without some situation, I tend to habituate and go the same way every day. And it's just part of the routine of life that is not bad, because it allows us to have predictability, and it allows us to be able to, just like our computers booting up the same way every day. If they booted up randomly every day and this app came up and that app didn't, and it would drive us crazy. We'd be back at the Apple store going, take this piece of junk back, fix it. So we do our best to try to routinely boot up every day, although we get distractions and things get in our way. But we're invited to change and improve all the time, but it's hard until there's a situation.
Mm-hmm.
When there's a situation, one that throws us back on our heels, that scares us, when the doctor says, I've been talking to you about exercise, but let me tell you what just showed up. We're seeing the calcium buildup. We're seeing blood pressure that's too high. We're seeing, diabetes. We're seeing all of these things that have now shown up. All of a sudden you stop and you go, whoa, it's time to change. And so what I would say to you is, when you ask that question about, what do we do, is we need to get to each one of us do our own work on our belief set, because actions come from changes of belief. And we get down and win our belief set to say we need to do something different to be better, to improve, to be more efficient, more productive, better with better relationships, any of those things. When we finally get to that situation, we'll go down and we'll say, oh, okay, you know what? I can find the time.
Yeah.
I can find the motivation. I can find those that want to help me, that can help me be more accountable in these areas. But if we don't get all the way down there and realize that, there's a situation coming, or we need to respond to the innovation, we'll remain the same. And we're living organisms. If we're not growing, we're dying. We don't stay the same as a living organism. That weed out there grows better than the flower. So it knows how to grow to do its thing that it wants to do. It's not good, but it's doing its thing. We have to grow. We have to grow. And so I would have people, your listeners, step back, question what it is that they believe that they really need to do, think about the invitation that they're being made to have, and then situationally start to go through and say, how can I change? How can I make this change? I have a great story of these two entrepreneurs. I watched them at a panel. I wish I could remember their names, but they were young guys, and one was telling the story to the other one that said, a few years ago, I had to tell my co-founder that he was a terrible co-founder. And he had responded like, what do you mean? I work like crazy. I give my whole life to this organization. And he goes, yeah, that's the problem. The problem is, you're here 19 hours a day, it feels like. You use caffeine and nicotine to keep you going, right? So you're always jacked up on caffeine and Red Bulls, and you smoke your cigarettes like crazy. You don't work out, and it all shows in the stress that you bring to work, and you're frazzled and all of that. And so you're not a good co-founder. You're not a good co-founder. And he took that to heart. He got himself off of the caffeine. He, as best he could, he didn't come all the way off, but he took it way down. It wasn't a driver anymore. He quit smoking. He actually put time on his calendar every day in the middle of the day to go and work out and go to the gym, lost a bunch of weight, came back a year later, sat down with his co-founder, says, "Am I better?" He goes, "Oh, not better. You're awesome."
That's awesome.
And part of it was the example that he was setting, because there is a true thing called the shadow of the leader. Like,
Mhm.
we look at the leader in a company and we go, well, they got there for some reason. So what is it about them that I need to do what they do? Is
Right.
it how they conduct themselves in meetings? Is it how they ask questions? Is it what they read? Is it how they speak? Is it how they treat others? You're looking for all those cues. Is it how many hours they're in the office? You're looking for all those cues, and you will fall into the shadow. So what you do has a huge effect on so many people that you don't even know.
Yeah.
So you need to change. You're changing not only for yourself, but you're changing for others.
Yeah.
And that's a good motivator.
Yep. That is awesome. Thank you so much for sharing, Rusty. Now, Rusty, could you also share with us what's the one online resource, tool, website, or application that you absolutely can't live without in your business?
Well, now it's ChatGPT. Then you and I were talking at the beginning of our time before the recording, about perplexity, and there's other large language models, generative AI tools that are coming. I will just say this: if you're not experimenting and not using generative AI to help you think about your work and how to improve, or how to be curious, like I'm done with Google. I'm done with Google searches. Now, can I get everything that I need out of ChatGPT yet? No. And so you end up defaulting back into other things. But this idea of uh, a broader learning um, co-pilot, as Microsoft would like to call it, or a companion, is becoming almost indispensable for me.
Yeah. Because it's
You
working
know,
smarter, right?
it's working smarter without becoming lazier,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you can find yourself into that trap pretty easily. Like, it's like, well, do I need to do the critical thinking, or am I just going to let ChatGPT or Perplexity or any of the other ones do the critical thinking for me?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, that's a danger. We got to watch out for that. But when it comes to efficiency and productivity, we're in a brand new world. I mean, this is not to overstate the word. I mean, it is a revolutionary thing that's happening right in front of us, and it's going to feel for us and for the next generation as a watershed moment, just like the smartphone was, just like the internet was before that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's amazing. It's just going to be amazing.
All right. So ChatGPT is your one tool that you can't live
It
without.
is. It
Can
is.
you also share with our listeners maybe one or two books that you would like to recommend? It could be a book that you've read a very long time ago, or even one that you've read recently, but it has had a profound impact on you, whether professionally or personally.
Yeah. So, as you can imagine, a person who wrote the book called The Faith Code, I'm a Bible reader. So I will always, I'll park that and tell you that that is a source code that never changes, but we change. So therefore it can feel new every time you read it. So,
Mhm.
but I'll park that because I know that's not the purpose of this, of this podcast. I'll tell you, but I am going to give you two other books. A book that I read in my early years of work, actually my first professional job, at Pratt and Whitney, because my boss gave it to me and told me that I must read it and that we would read it together, almost like a book club. And you have to
Mhm.
understand that at this time, he was probably in his late 50s, eighth grade education, but
Wow.
he'd gone to work on the machine shop floor, worked himself up to becoming a manager, then a supervisor, and then a director in the company.
Mm.
Um, and he gave me the book Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand.
Okay.
And I devoured it. I went deep into objectivism. I thought it was almost biblical in its uh, in the learnings it gave me
Mm-hmm.
until I figured out that it was promoting self-dependence, extreme capitalism, um, take care of those who perform and produce and leave the others behind.
Mm-hmm.
It took me a long time to figure it out that that book was very dangerous, and that had a profound influence in two ways in my life. One, it taught me a lot, but it also taught me what not to be. And so if anybody's going to read it, you read it, but then you just have to step back and look at it, because that extreme capitalism, the story of in her whole philosophy, can be dangerous, at least in my mind. But the one that is fantastic is What Technology Wants by Kevin Kelly. And Kevin Kelly was early at in the internet. I mean, really early. One of the first online resources was a thing called The Well. He was part of creating that. He was a co-founder at Wired magazine and still is called the chief maverick there, still writes. But he wrote this book, What Technology Wants. And his hypothesis is that technology is a kingdom, just like we have 7 other kingdoms. This is like the 8th kingdom that is always moving in life, and it evolves, and it will move with or without us. And you go, oh, that's crazy. How could that be? Well, then tell me, how is it that Alexander Graham Bell in America created the telephone just about the same time that someone in Europe created the telephone, but they had never met, and there was no way to know that either one of them were doing that? How does that happen? How does it happen that, 4 or 5 ideas all come to market at the same time? And we go, whoa, what was that about? They weren't copying. It's like technology moves. It moves with our knowledge and our education and what we see in the realm of things. People see things and go, there's a need for that. And so the technology, if we study it, we can actually be one step ahead of it.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're one step ahead of it, or trying to be one step ahead of it, you will be a faster learner. You'll be around the corner when other people haven't quite gotten there yet. And if you really want to know what technology is going to be, read science fiction, because there's nothing that shows up that someplace hasn't been written in science fiction. And so I have a very good friend who's a venture capitalist, and that's all he reads. No business books, nothing else. He just reads science fiction all the time, because
Wow.
that's where the future is going to be.
That's true. When you said science fiction just now, I remember when I was small and I used to watch this cartoon on TV called The Jetsons,
Mm-hmm.
and they would video call each other, and I was just like,
Exactly.
what is happening here? Are these people
Yeah.
crazy?
Yeah. And flying cars that were piloted by somebody else, that
Yeah.
all George Jetson did was get in the back, get in the thing, and it took off and went.
Yeah.
Come to San Francisco and ride around in Waymo taxis that there are no drivers.
Scary.
Not too far before they come off the ground.
True. True. Very
It's an
true.
evolution. What technology wants, technology will get.
That's true. And we might not be here 100 years from now, but can you just imagine what's going to exist 100
Oh,
years from now?
I had a stepfather who lived to be 94, and he died about probably about 15 years ago now. So think about 94, 15 years ago. He would talk about the things that he saw in his lifetime. I mean, he could remember seeing like a combustion engine car for the first time,
Wow.
all the way through, watching men walk on the moon, to the space shuttle, to the internet, to he didn't see self-driving cars yet, but he saw battery cars. I mean, it's like, wow, all in the span of one lifetime
Yeah,
in 94
that's
years.
true. That's
So
true.
it's not going to slow down.
No.
It's not going to slow down. So if you're born today, in your probably not 94, probably 115 years of life, because we may have that life expectancy by then. Um, you're showing up today. Imagine what you're going to see over the next 100 plus years.
Yeah, agreed.
Wild, wild.
All right, Rusty, can you share with our listeners what's the one thing that's going on in your life right now that you're really excited about? Either something you're working on to develop yourself or your people.
Yeah. So coming up on 1 year of this book, and it's still going really well, and we're getting ready to do the audio version. So we'll be sitting down. It'll be the first time that I've been an author that I will actually have recorded my own audio book. So I'm really psyched about that. I think that's going to be that'll be really interesting to see how that comes out. So I'm excited about that. I have some personal goals that I'm working on. I always keep mind and body and spirit goals. And so I will finish my last marathon. I've run 9. I will finish my 10th one, get to the start line, which is the hard thing, and then finish my last marathon in this coming year. So, and I say last because 10 is enough. You just don't need more than that. Or at least I don't. So I'm excited about some of those physical things that I've got going on. And then, as far as, some of the other things that just, I've got some new companies that I'm working with. I've got one that I'm really, really excited, about that finds random non-standard data about humans that they volunteer to put forward to do matching of experiences in ways that hasn't been really done before. And I'm excited about that because I think where the world is right now, especially since the pandemic, we've become more withdrawn as humans. Again, we habituate, so it's a little harder to muster up, let's go out on Thursday night, or let's go do this, or let's go see that. And there was a futurist by the name of Faith Popcorn back in the 70s, and one of her futurist trends was cocooning. And she said, we will have everything. We'll have all the technology. We'll have everything we need. Food will come to us. We won't need to go out. So our socialization will become harder. And I think we're seeing that. And I think the output of that, where it be loneliness or depression or anxiety, is prevalent. So I think we have to find hooks and ways for people to want to socialize in differently. And I think that that's found in common interests. As much as it's found in common personality, I think it's found in those things that you go, oh, I've always been interested in race car driving, but I've never knew anybody else that was. But but now I know 2 or 3 people that I've been connected to, and I think we could. I think I'd like to have them come over to the house and we could watch Formula One together.
Right.
So I'm excited. I'm excited about that, and a few other companies I'm working on. So nothing groundbreaking or world shaking. But I also think that that's how life works. It's one step at a time, one tack at a time.
Yep.
And the next thing you know, you're on a new vector to something new.
Brilliant. All right. Now, Rusty, can you share with our listeners, where can they find you online? They've tapped into this episode. They're intrigued with your book. They're intrigued with all of the wonderful things that we've sat here and discussed, and they'd like to connect with you online. Where's the best place they can find you online?
Well, you can find me multiple places. So my name, Rusty Rueff, at Rusty Rueff, at on X, on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, I do all those things. I'm not a great TikToker, so don't hold it against me. Don't hold it against me. But and then you can always find me at my email address, which I'll share, it's very simple. It's my first name, Rusty, at my last name, Rueff, RUEFF.com.
And is the at the symbol, or is it AT spelled out?
No, it's at the symbol. So
Okay.
rusty@roof.com. It's just my email address. And anybody should um, feel free to reach out at any time. I, I do think we're a big world with, billions and billions and billions of people. But on the other hand, we're a small community,
Yeah.
and we need to make sure that we take care of each other, and we need to make sure that we're kind with each other.
Mm-hmm.
And if I can do that, then and I can help somebody, then I've achieved one little mark towards purpose.
All right. Now, before we wrap our episodes up, Rusty, we always like to ask our guests, do you have a quote or a saying that during times of adversity or challenge, you'll tend to revert to this quote? If for any reason you get derailed or you get off track, the quote kind of helps to get you back on track. Do you have one of
I,
those?
I do, and it's on my wall right over here that I've carried with me since 1984.
Wow.
And it says, "There will be only one of you," and the "you" is underlined in red. "There will
Mm-hmm.
be only one of you for all time." And then below it, it says, "Fearlessly be yourself."
Only one of you.
For all time, fearlessly be yourself. And I draw upon that. In fact, I drew upon it this morning. I was getting ready to do a Zoom call with a committee that I'm on, and we just don't really quite know what we should be recommending next in this committee.
Mm-hmm.
And I know what I think we should do.
Mm-hmm.
And I said to myself, I got to fearlessly be myself. I've got to share my point of view. And by the way, I'll leave you this with your listeners. I was once taught, and I believe it with all my heart, that a point of view is worth 10 IQ points. You go into a meeting, you're with a committee, you're with your boss, you're with a customer, and everything's sort of like swirling around, and somebody needs to have a point of view. Your point of view is worth 10 IQ points. And so many people don't realize that if they just step forward with their point of view, other people will listen.
Yeah.
And so there will be only one of you for all time. Fearlessly be yourself.
I love it. All right. So we'll have that quote and Rusty's explanation for his quote in the show notes of this episode. All right. Well, Rusty, thank you so much. I really enjoyed this conversation.
Thank you.
I think you brought great value to our listeners. And, it's so important for people to recognize. I mean, I know the show is about customer experience, but I don't think generally people can have a good experience if they themselves are not taking care of themselves. So I think a lot of what you spoke about today can help anyone in any industry, regardless of whichever country or part of the hemisphere you're living, to really pour into yourself in a very meaningful and intentional way that will create, results that are astronomical for you. But as you
Totally.
said, you have to make that decision. That's something that you really have to commit to.
Yeah. So I'll leave you this one last thought. I'm sorry, I can't help myself. Especially in customer service. If you can't put a smile on your face or a smile in your voice,
Yeah.
which is what your customer's looking for on the other side, right? They want to hear a smile when they reach to you. If you can't put a smile on your face or a smile in your voice, then go ask yourself why. And then go figure out, what do I need to do to make sure that I can? And you'll be different. You'll be unique. And your head will pop up among all the rest when they look at it, and people will recognize you. And all of a sudden you'll see your customer service ratings go up, and other people will wonder why. It's because I found a way to have a smile on my voice or a smile on my face.
Mm-hmm. So true.
It's a game changer. It can be a game changer.
Mm-hmm. And they do say a smile is worth more than 1,000 words. So
Absolutely.
So Rusty, thank you again. Just want to remind our listeners that you can follow us on Twitter, on X at Navigating CX, and feel free to join our private Facebook group, Navigating the Customer Experience Community. So until next time, I'm your host, Yanique Grant.
Thanks for listening. For more awesome resources to take your customer service game to another level, head over to navigatingthecustomerexperience.com. See you next time.